So I got a message from one of you yesterday asking for advice on this particular setup. And she's in Portugal and she's renting, so I'm not going to recommend anything that involves drilling holes in the wall, nothing that could mean that you might lose your deposit. So this is all going to be things that you can then take with you if you ever move, and it won't risk your deposit. Now this is the kind of setup, it's kind of a semi-window balcony. The windowsill on the outside is absolutely tiny, and also she was explaining the way that the door slash window works. It's monumentally faffy, so I'm not going to recommend anything for the windowsill outside, just because you always want to work within your lazy parameters, because there are always going to be days where you just think, I just can't be bothered. And it might be something really small, but just work with your laziness in gardening. So instead, there are a few things that I can suggest that you could do indoors instead. Now, on the video she sent me, I didn't see anything that resembled a curtain rail, but I am going to suggest this just because if some of you are having a similar problem, this might be exactly the kind of thing for you. And it's essentially string, boards, holes drilled on the side, and then bigger holes cut here for the pots. You don't have to get it from Etsy. I'm not suggesting this person in particular, it's just an example. I'm going to get some people mentioning this, where you can get pots which attach to the window itself with little suckers. I know that for some people that works very well, but for some of the plants like basil, which can get very, very big, I would be a bit wary about that because they could just fall off. So I'm going to mention this just in case this is something that you think, yeah, I'd like to give this a try. And this is the kind of name that you're normally going to find them under. But this is not something that I'm going to recommend directly, just because I have concerns about the pots getting too heavy once the plant gets too big or once they get watered. But at least you know it's an option. The thing that I would actually suggest the most for this kind of setup is having some kind of tray on wheels, so that way if you need to access the actual window itself, it's easy to just move this out of the way. Now this thing is ugly, it's far too close together. Really, you want something which has more space so that the plants can still grow up, and you don't want something that is too wide, because otherwise the plants which are right here up against the window, they're going to get plenty of light, but the plants over here won't. So try and get something that's quite narrow and up against the glass. And it doesn't have to be this kind of colour. The nicest one that I've found is actually just a cocktail tray. I like this one particularly because it's got a lot of height, and also having that mirror at the bottom means that it's going to reflect a lot more light. And because it looks nice, it's not going to be this big chunky ugly thing sitting in front of your window. So you've still got a way to have something which is quite beautiful and stylish but easy to move, and you can take it with you if you ever decide to move. You could also find some which are taller so that you can get the use of the whole door space. But if that was the kind of setup that I was growing in, then that is what I would try.